This new $1 trillion program to buy up bad bank assets is supposed to help free up the credit market, and that in turn would help save the housing industry.
But our next guest says the plan is targeted the wrong way. He's Billy Procida, president of the management firm William Procida. So what do you say, sir?
Well, listen, I think it's a good start, and it is very similar to the plan we unveiled on this show, which is a plan I wrote
right here on Fox
100
Business
in early December. So, you know, Fox was a little ahead of everybody.
So you're saying they stole your plan? The White House stole your plan?
Actually, they should go to plan100.org and actually get the details of the plan, because the problem is that, number one, they're throwing way too much money at it too fast. If you recall, Plan 100, I said, let's start with 100 investment managers, small ones, $100 million each. They're talking about 5 asset managers, the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. The second issue is if they don't send a message to the banks saying no more bailouts, you want to get rid of your stuff, talk to our folks. It's exactly what's in my plan. Talk to our folks. They'll give you a fair price. But the government's got to understand they have to go local, because after you buy these assets, you have to take care of them. Every asset every loan has a borrower, whether it's commercial or residential, and a house or an office building or a shopping center. You can't just buy the loans. The other thing that's very important is the banks have got to start to help themselves. Today, in a conversation with a bank, they had $50 million invested in something. It's 80% complete. They need a few more dollars to finish it. If they put it on the market today, they get 20 cents on a dollar. If they spend that extra $1 million, they will preserve the value of their $50 million investment. And now what are they doing? They're just waiting for the government to bail them out. So it's a combination. Banks have got to help themselves, and the government's got to widen the field, and it's local. You can't give too much money to anybody.
But since the government is in the money-giving mode to everybody right now, because the inflation hasn't quite caught up with it yet, is everybody, whether they've got houses, whether they've got mortgage-backed securities, sitting back a while and just waiting to see how pricey the government's bid is going to be?
But that's the point, okay? As a taxpayer, and by the way, I'm a guy who's bought billions of dollars of loans, so I know the game. I've also been hired by banks to fix billions of dollars of loans. It's a local business. And by the way, you brought up the securities. Forget the securities. All of these different securities, CDOs, derivatives, all the stuff, underneath all of it is a loan, a house and a borrower, or a building and a borrower. The banks that have bad loans, and by the way, one of our other problems here is if you are a seller, you can't be a buyer. And what the interesting thing is going to be, you know, and you should only be buying from banks, because whether it's BlackRock, well, who cares? I don't want taxpayer money going to buy assets from funds that bought them last year from banks. We only want to buy bank assets to help the banks. And the one thing you got to remember is we really got to solve the problem. And the problem is, you go back 20 years, we did not have these big national banks. Chase, a local New York bank, right? You got to get back to the fact that the banks have got to start getting smaller, because you can't manage them.
William, in the plan details, it shows that the pools, they can be levered up, 6-to-1 for loans, right, to buy the mortgage loans, but only 3-to-1, I think, to buy the securities. Is this any kind of a bet by the government saying, look, no one's going to want the securities? That means more write-downs, right? It's easy. In other words, more backing for the mortgage loans, not the stupid securities that were built on them.
I say forget the securities. The securities will follow, depending on if they pick good managers. Okay, and I've done a lot of this, and there's a lot of me out there. If they pick good managers, they'll buy the loans right, and they'll fix them within a year or so.
But doesn't the market, we were told a year ago, maybe it's old, maybe it's history, maybe the world has changed so much we don't need them, but that without mortgage-backed securities, the housing market will collapse. You're saying forget the mortgage-backed securities entirely?
By the way, for 100 years, we survived without them.
We survived without Fannie Mae.
But going back,
didn't we get it? I just want you to answer the question.
Right.
Are mortgage-backed securities integral to our housing system or not?
My opinion, no. Local banks. You go to your local community bank today, there's 100 of them in New Jersey, and they'll give you a loan.
No, wait, they provided, no, the mortgage-backed securities market provided 50%, some say 75% of the lending that's going on. But the other question, too, we got to ask you, William, is this, and that is, are you afraid more taxpayer money is going to be blown out the door? Because Geithner has 17 deputy undersecretary positions unfilled. The criticism has been that the president is not picking Treasury secretaries while he's picking NCAA teams.
Well, You're right. It's a scary thing that he has not filled the post.
So
in fact, by the way, I wrote a letter to Obama today reminding him, I'll volunteer for free. Call me. I make a lot of money. I don't need the money. Call me. I'll work for free. And there's a lot of guys out there like that they could tap. Never get through the vetting process, probably. The story. Going back, by the way, the one thing I want to point out, you were talking about the financing.
Quickly.
93% the finance?
Billy.
15% people should be putting
Billy Procida, who is
Secretary.
available for the job. If Mr. Geithner, if you need somebody else, here's the man for your job. Well, look to the right of the board there. You can see 497 to the plus. A huge day, the fifth biggest point gain in Dow history. We're going to be talking about whether this can be sustained into tomorrow.
Yeah, a lot of volatility, though. It may be built on thin ice. Stay with us. There's more on Bulls and Bears.